and welcome to UWO Now. I'm your host, Wendell Ray. Thanks for joining us for another conversation with a member of our UWO community. You know, most adults within the sound of my voice earn a living some kind of way, and usually for their work, they receive some sort of pay, compensation. In the United States, that's in the form of dollars and cents. We all understand dollars and cents. It is currency, stuff you can touch, feel, exchange. Well, for about 15 years, there's been another currency, cryptocurrency. It emerged and remains to this day. It is also remaining to be elusive for many. And here to try and explain to us blockchains, cryptocurrency, and the most famous cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, is Steve Schilhabel, who is an assistant professor of information systems at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh College of Business. Steve, thanks so much for coming to join us on UWO Now.
Thanks so much for having me, Wendell. I really appreciate it, and I love the work going on here at UW-Oshkosh.
Notice I said that Steve is an associate professor of information systems. I did not say economics or finance, which might be telling. Steve, please break down for us, what is cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I like the way you started the introduction by talking about how dollars and cents are physical. Probably the key difference between dollars and currency like Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies is that it's digital. There's nothing physically behind it. It started really in 2009 with a white paper that was written by Satoshi Nakamoto, which led us into the creation of Bitcoin, and it was used with a technology called, or written with a technology called blockchain.
Okay, so blockchain. I think that probably is where we need to start. Then we'll get a little bit into that white paper because that's important too, I think, in terms of its fundamentals of understanding this. And we're going to be talking, ladies and gentlemen, about cryptocurrency in a way that I think everyone will be able to understand what it is. And that's the purpose here today, to try and shed some light on what exactly is cryptocurrency, what is a Bitcoin. But to start, Steve, as you said, we need to first define how it all works. And that starts with blockchains. Tell us about blockchain.
I think the easiest way to understand blockchain as a technology is to describe it as a digital ledger. But think about it in terms of the ledgers you're familiar with. We probably all have bank accounts. I bank at Community First Credit Union, for example. Community First Credit Union has a centralized ledger. When I write a check, when I pay a bill, they debit that ledger, money comes out of it. When I deposit my paycheck, they credit it, money goes into it. We refer to that as a centralized ledger because there's one copy of that ledger. It's stored at Community First Credit Union. They control it. They determine when when there's an addition, there's a deletion, when there's something that's deleted. Conversely, Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies are decentralized ledger. There's no central authority like that bank in the middle. Instead, you have a distributed network of servers, and there's copies of that ledger on all the different servers. So there isn't a single copy. Everybody can view that copy. The participants determine what records get added to the ledger itself.
Okay, and I think we'll get that. Okay, so visualizing, ladies and gentlemen, your bank, the statement that you get every month that comes from the bank, centralized. And cryptocurrency, or blockchaining, what Steve is saying is that ledger has many banks that have access to the ledger. Is that right?
Many different viewers, I won't say banks, I'll say people or servers have access to it, and they can all view the content on that ledger.
Okay. Now, let's talk about those individuals who you say got this rolling about 15 years ago. And we say those individuals because this white paper that we talked about that came about in 2009 had one person's name on it, but most experts believe it was a group of people anonymously who came together to launch this blockchain cryptocurrency. Tell us a little bit about what was the impetus behind all of that.
That's correct, Wendell. It came out in 2009, and if we bring ourselves back in time to 2009, we were in the middle of a housing crisis. We were in the middle of a recession. There was a lot of distrust around banks, and it goes back to that centralized ledger. So this group of people were looking to combine some existing technologies to help solve that. And that's where they wanted to move away from these centralized ledgers that resided and were controlled by banks to a decentralized ledger that multiple people could look at and collaborate on and work on and had more transparency to it.
I see. Okay. So the currency that we all are familiar with is controlled, typically speaking, in every country by the government or some government entity.
Absolutely.
Centralized again. So a distrust of that system came about, and so individuals launched one that was decentralized in aspect, correct?
That's correct. And that white paper that you talked about, there is a single name on it, but we've never been able to identify who that actually was. We believe it's a pseudonym. Mm-hmm. And when you read the white paper, there are varying technical topics that require deep knowledge. And so we think it's more likely that a group of people collaborated on that, and they really did it as an experiment to find out what would happen.
Well, I wonder what they're thinking at this point. So that name that appeared on this white paper that was titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, that name was Satoshi Nakamoto?
That's correct.
And as you said, most people believe that's a pseudonym for a group of individuals, smart folks who got together to create this cryptocurrency. And so blockchains are the fundamental underlying principle and technology behind it all. And the reason you're here in information systems and not someone who's in finance or economics is here to explain this. So I heard what you said, but let's talk a little bit more about how does it work?
Yeah, that's a really good point. One of the ways I'll think about it is I'll keep going back to that bank example. So if we think about a centralized ledger, if somebody at Community First Credit Union or whatever bank it is accidentally went in and made a typo, it affects your bank account. If a hacker got access to that individual bank, they could change or alter that record. So the big difference with the distributed network is you have copies of this all over the place. So if a hacker gets in and changes one copy, you still have all the other copies. And they can go ahead and look and go, no, that record's not valid. We're going to ignore that one. It's also immutable because unlike the bank one, it's not in a database. So with a database, you can add a record, you can delete a record, you can change a record. Blockchain doesn't work that way. Essentially what they're doing is they're taking these records, they're chaining them together, they're putting them in blocks, and then they're encrypting them. And I know there's a lot of technical jargon in there, but the way to say it is imagine that instead of a database, you're just taking one record after the other, you're adding it onto the end of the chain, and it can never be deleted, it can never be altered or changed. So you have this ever-growing chain of records.
So who are these people? Who's the they that determines what gets added to this ledger?
Yeah, and that's a really interesting question. I think a little bit later we're going to talk about other cryptocurrencies. That's why there are so many of them. The they can be anybody. Anybody that knows the programming language for blockchain can go ahead and create their own blockchain. They can make it private or public. So you could have a group of companies get together and they could have a private blockchain that they control and only they can see. You can have a group of people come together and create a new blockchain with different values in it and make that public to anybody. So it really could be anybody at this point.
Wow. Okay. So you're listening to UWO Now. I'm Wendell Ray, and we're talking about cryptocurrency at a very fundamental level so that we can all understand it and how it affects us and how, if you choose to, you can get involved in this system. We're talking with Steven Schilhabel, who is an assistant professor of information systems at UWO, the UWO College of Business. Before we get too far into it, Steve, tell us about you. Who are you? How did you become interested in this? And how did you become a professor here at UWO?
Thanks for asking me, Wendell. I'm actually a UW-Oshkosh alum. I came here for my bachelor's degree, majored in information systems, came back a few years later, got my master's degree. And then a few years later, I made a little bit of money on cryptocurrency. And I thought, well, this is enough to pay for a doctorate. I've always wanted to do it. So I started attending a program at UW-Whitewater just last year, earned my doctorate of business administration, and came here and started teaching information systems this year at UW-Oshkosh. I've always been a techie kind of guy, love to learn by doing things. So when cryptocurrency started to become popular, I built my own server. I started mining. I built an artificial intelligence trading bot, and learned by doing those types of things.
Okay. So fantastic. Do you have to be an IT guy, an IT person, to be good at this?
No, I wouldn't say you need to be. It's important to have some tech savvy because, as we mentioned, this is all digital. So you will hear a lot of words that are representations of what happens in a physical world. So they talk about mining. So the people who wrote this paper, they're referencing it back to mining gold. But they're not actually using a shovel or a pan in a river to look for gold. They're using mathematical functions to try and identify these coins that they've created. In addition, if you just wanted to buy a Bitcoin or a portion of a Bitcoin, you'd need a wallet, but it wouldn't be the physical wallet you have in your pocket. You'd open up a digital wallet with a service online. So you have to have enough tech savvy to be able to log on those sites, create those wallets, transfer money from your bank in terms of dollars to actually purchase them.
Okay, yeah, you talked about mining and wallets. Those are a few terms I think that are fundamental enough for us to kind of delve into it here today, because that's all we're trying to do is just to lay it out. This is what it is, and you've heard about it, you wondered about it. Maybe you know people who are dabbling in it and have had some success. How are they doing it, you may ask? So that is why Steve is here today. We're not here to give any sort of investment advice. This is not that type of program, but we are here to kind of explain the fundamentals of blockchains, cryptocurrency, and one of the more famous types of cryptocurrency, Bitcoins. It's not associated with any particular government. So are we talking about, I guess people want to know, is it legal? Is it, let's just start there.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I'd say, yes, it is legal. It's legal in the United States. The thing to understand, though, is like with any new technology, regulation hasn't caught up with it. So if you were to go and buy a stock or invest in a mutual fund, those are regulated by the United States government. They're backed by the government in some way, particularly your bank. If you open up a savings account, it's backed by the FDIC. With crypto, it's important to know the regulation hasn't caught up. So yes, it's legal to buy it, but it's unregulated. It's highly volatile.
Unregulated, like the internet is unregulated, though it is legal to be on the internet. It is not necessarily regulated like broadcasting is by the FCC. Is that a good analogy?
It is a good analogy. And if you watch the headlines every 6 months, every year, you might hear about a hack, or you might hear about somebody that opened up a wallet and started storing Bitcoins and they stole it from all their customers. That happens quite frequently because of the lack of regulation. The one thing the United States government started to do a couple of years ago was they started to tax it. So just know if you start to buy a Bitcoin and then you sell it later and you make a little bit of money, you owe taxes on that. It's like any other investment. It's a capital gain.
Okay, so that was going to be my next question. This is an investment, right? It's not just a way to go out and buy shoes. It, as a currency, it is, should we see it more as an investment?
You can see it as either or. And this goes back to the concept of the creators wanting it as an experiment, right? So on one hand, they intended it to be a currency. So the first transaction that was done was actually the purchase of a pizza for, I think, 2 Bitcoins. So somebody wanted a pizza, they gave their friend 2 Bitcoins, and that person delivered them a pizza. So yeah, certainly it can be a currency just based for transactions. Other people also use that as an investment. Back in 2009, Bitcoin was trading around 9 cents. Today, it's in the mid $50,000 range, 58, 59,000, depending on when you look at it. So if you would have bought it back then, you'd be fairly wealthy right now if you just would have bought and hold it. But there's no guarantee that investment is going to continue. The demand could go away and it could become worthless tomorrow.
We're talking today with Steven Schilhabel, who is an assistant professor of information systems at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh College of Business, talking about blockchains, cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin, which is the more popular, one of the more popular cryptocurrencies out there, just to give you a fundamental idea of how it works, what it is, because I'm sure most of you have heard of it, good or bad, you've heard something about it, but maybe you don't really understand it. I know I was in that lane, and to a certain extent, I still exist in that lane, but Steve is helping us understand it. We've been talking about a few terms here that I want to kind of revisit to cement that in our listeners' and viewers' minds, and that is one, a blockchain, and then what is mining and what is a wallet. So let's go back to how this all kind of works from a IT kind of perspective, and that is with the blockchain.
All right. So the blockchain itself, again, is a decentralized ledger. So you can think about that even in terms of a paper ledger. It's just you're writing one record after another. So if I were to, for example, I had some Bitcoin and I wanted to buy a pizza, I could pay you to deliver that pizza and I could pay you in portions of a Bitcoin. I would just in my ledger say, the Bitcoin was mine, now the Bitcoin is Wendell's. And you just keep adding records on that sequentially to the blockchain itself. Then other people have access to that ledger. That's one of the differences with the centralized bank. So everybody can go ahead and look at that and go, yep, I see right here where, Steve paid Wendell to deliver his pizza. Now Wendell owns that portion of the Bitcoin.
Now, those people, the they that are saying, yeah, that's a valid transaction, who are they and how do they get this status of approving or not approving or validating a trade?
I think that's one of the reasons why cryptocurrency is so mystifying to so many people. We've all been raised in a world with centralized banks. So in a centralized situation, they are your bank, right? They're the ones that control that ledger and say, you have this dollar, it's Steve Schilhabel's dollar. In the blockchain, it's really dependent on whoever created the blockchain and then whoever the participating members are. So once, for example, I buy a Bitcoin, I'm part of the blockchain. My records are on there. I can go ahead and start to store that on my server if I want. I can have a complete copy of the entire ledger on my server if I want to do it. So who it is, it's a little bit open. It's all the people participating in the record keeping of the blockchain.
Okay, now do I have to have a server in order to participate in this? You keep mentioning that. I would imagine you do this at a different level than others, but I just want to kind of cover that. For somebody out there probably said, I don't know how to create a server. So do you have to have a server, Steve?
That's a really good point, and I probably misled the viewers there a little bit. If you just want to own Bitcoin, you absolutely don't need a server. If you want to participate in the blockchain itself, you're probably not going to want to do that on your desktop or a laptop. You'd probably have a server and you'd probably be more of an IT professional. So the average person's just going to log on to a digital wallet or a digital trading platform. The one I use is Coinbase. And again, if we go back to our analogy about a wallet, it's a digital wallet. So there is no physical dollar in a physical wallet. There is a complex number that is in a digital wallet that is stored by a provider like Coinbase.
But at some point, there's a dollar that is exchanged for Bitcoin, right? I mean, if I go to one of these platforms and say, I want to start doing this, I have to give some money for it, right? I mean, it's not like I just create Bitcoin out of the air.
Absolutely. And this is where the analogy would be just like buying a piece of stock. So, for example, you would log on to a trading platform. You would connect your trading platform to your bank. You would deposit money from your bank into the trading platform. The trading platform would now have an account with your name on it and with dollars in it. And then you could use those dollars to buy Bitcoins. And then at a future point, you could sell those Bitcoins. It would convert it back into dollars. You could withdraw the dollars from your trading platform, put them back into your bank account.
So did I understand you correctly that a wallet is one of those platforms? Is that right?
Generally today, what you see when you log on to most of these platforms is they're both a trading platform and a wallet. So they will store your cryptocurrency for you if you're just holding on to it. But if you want to sell Bitcoin and buy Ethereum, if you want to have auto trades in, say I have cash, but if it falls to this point, I want to automatically buy some, it serves as a trading platform very similar to a stock market trading platform.
Okay, and the other term that you mentioned earlier was mining. What is mining?
Yeah, so it goes back to that analogy they were trying to do after gold mining. So physically, you're not in a river with a pan looking for a nugget of gold. In this case, they've minted these coins, these digital coins, and you're looking for them by trying to solve a complex mathematical problem. And you can mine by basically using a graphics card, high-end computer graphics card, and just keep running through different numbers, basically, is the most simplistic way to think about it, until all of a sudden you get to a combination that is the right combination for a Bitcoin. And if you do that and you find it on your computer, your server, however you're doing it, you now own that. It's just like you found a brick of gold or a nugget of gold while digging through a mountain.
Okay, all right. So there's risk involved like any other investment, and a more recent example of the risks that are involved in this were illustrated when a man was arrested and charged, and now I believe is serving time, Sam Bankman-Fried. I remember watching all this going on in the news when it was happening and not really knowing what did he do, how did he do, what. Are you familiar with this story, and what was, for those out there who may be thinking about this, what did he do? What was that case about?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, and I appreciate you bringing that up. It highlights the lack of regulation and the risk around doing this. So a caution to everybody if you're going to get into this, and I think the best way to learn about something is do it, but I'd only do it with a $10 or $100, something that if you lost it, you wouldn't sweat it. It was worth the learning opportunity. I'll go back to my analogy of a wallet. So essentially what he did is say, I've opened up this wallet. I will store your Bitcoins for you. And people gave him these Bitcoins and they put them in his wallet. And then he took the Bitcoins out of the wallet, he sold them, and he kept the cash. So the problem with it being not regulated is the United States government, no entity is watching the people who do this. Anybody can open up a trading platform. Anybody can open up an electronic wallet, and they can start to solicit people to, put their Bitcoins or their money in it. And essentially, he just stole it. And then later, when the people realized their money was gone, they reported him to the authorities, and he ended up getting arrested for fraud or theft, basically.
So how does one? I've heard stories of individuals who do really well with cryptocurrency. But how are they doing well? At some point, this cryptocurrency, this virtual currency, in order to make sense for most of us, has to turn back into some dollars.
Yeah.
How does that happen? I give you some money, it's an investment. Then who's giving me this money back if there's no central bank or there's nothing like that to actually pay me? How does that happen? Yeah,
so essentially it's like any other investment. It's based on the laws of supply and demand. So if you think about it with gold, say you own a brick of gold. Today, the market may be saying it's worth $600 a brick or whatever that may be. I don't know what the current value of a brick of gold is. Tomorrow, if more people want to buy gold, the price to buy gold will go up because the people selling it will want to sell it for more. If fewer people want gold tomorrow, the price of that gold will go down. So it's just like that with the gold, except it's this digital number that's out in the wallet. And what essentially Bitcoin's doing is they're controlling the supply. So every 4 years, we talked about mining, it gets harder. It gets twice as hard to mine the next batch of numbers. So the supply is getting harder and harder. If you want to mine one, it's getting harder and harder every 4 years to get it. What's a little bit more volatile is who wants it, the demand. So right now, people see the price, the value of it going up, just like the value of a brick of gold. And the higher it goes, the more people want to buy it. But that doesn't mean that someday in the future, everybody will say, yeah, I'm kind of tired of this. I don't want any Bitcoin. They'll start selling it and the price will crash. So does that analogy help a little bit?
I think so in terms of understanding it as an investment. But I guess what I was asking also is, all right, my investment increases. I get paid by that wallet?
Yes. So that trading platform. So example, the one I'm using is Coinbase, and I'm not promoting any one over another. That just happens to be the one I use. So I buy a Bitcoin or a portion of a Bitcoin. And I think that's an important concept too. You know, if a Bitcoin's worth $58,000 right now, you don't need $58,000 to buy a Bitcoin. It's just like gold. You could buy a portion of the brick. You could have a little nugget. So you can buy a very small quantity of it. But essentially, if the value of it goes up, I just go into my wallet and I sell it. Then that Coinbase credits my account with $1. I can withdraw that currency, that dollar, and deposit it back into my bank.
We've been talking about Bitcoin, but is that the only cryptocurrency out there?
That's a really good question, Wendell. There are actually dozens, probably hundreds of cryptocurrencies. Some of them come and go. I would say the two most popular, the two with the most longevity are Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Okay. All right. So summing all this up, I hope we have given everyone, listeners and viewers, if you're watching this on the website, some information to kind of clear the muddiness around what cryptocurrency is. But your advice for somebody just hearing this and saying, well, let me try something. What should they do? How should they research this is really something that they want to get into? What are some things they should really look out for or understand before moving forward?
So I'd say the first most important thing in an unregulated environment like this is you're going to pick a wallet or a trading platform that you're going to put your money into, buy these cryptocurrencies and store these cryptocurrencies. Look for a wallet or a trading platform that does this, that's been around for a while. Something that's been around for 6, 7, 8, 9 years, they haven't had any problems. You don't want to go to this person that just set up their own wallet. They did it 6 months ago. There's not a lot of history there. There's not a lot of trust there. That's the first thing I would do. Pick your wallet, your trading platform first. Make sure that it's reputable. Do your research on it. Make sure they've been around a while. They haven't had any hacks or any thefts associated with them.
And I know the second thing is take baby steps and never invest more than you can afford to lose. Steve Schilhabel, thanks so much for coming by and talking to us today on UWO Now. Explain to us what cryptocurrency is. I think we all benefited from it. Thanks very much for coming by and talking to us today.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to UWO Now. Remember to catch the latest episode of UWO Now. Go to the WRST.org website. You can also catch this episode and previous episodes on the UWO YouTube page. I'm Wendell Ray. Thanks so much for listening.